Do you remember the holidays of your youth? That fantastic time when you had 2 whole weeks off of school and nothing to do but hang out with your friends. Go sledding or skiing, go to the arcade, just hang out at someone's house and play video games. And hey, maybe go to a birthday party if one of your friends had a December or January birthday. I'm Joe, and that's me, born in December of 1982, and I'm going to take you back to the birthdays of my youth. I had a bit of writer's block coming into this year's holiday time videos, so I put a poll on what to do this year to my Patreon and YouTube channel member folks. They pretty overwhelmingly asked for some personal nostalgia, so that's what we're here for. And I figured some reminiscing about my childhood birthday parties might be just a little different than what you normally see in this space. And hey, when you're a kid, you're not usually around your friends on Christmas. But your birthday? Definitely. With a December birthday in Wisconsin, you have, broadly speaking, 2 options for your birthday parties. Winter sports like sledding or skiing, or indoor activities. Generally speaking, I opted for the latter, or some years a hybrid with an early sledding trip to somewhere like Whitnall Park in suburban Milwaukee, followed by pizza and video games at home. But that was less common than just doing something indoors. And whether it was all indoors or just partially, I'm going to tell you about 3 games I remember from my childhood birthday parties, in chronological order. Let's do it. For most of elementary school, I did what a lot of kids my age did for their birthday. Went to that haven of video games and pizza, Chuck E. Cheese's. I suspect anyone watching this knows what that is, but just in case, Chuck E. Cheese was the brainchild of Atari founder Nolan Bushnell, an operation meant to make arcades as family-friendly as possible. Low-quality food, because kids generally don't care, coupled with arcade games, redemption games like Skee-Ball, and of course, an animatronic rock band fronted by Mr. Cheese himself, an anthropomorphic rat. Oh, and they all had liquor licenses so they could sell beer to your parents. And it was in this monument to beer, pizza, and video games that I first recall playing Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. It was the first 4-player beat-em-up I ever dropped a token into. Konami released a ton of brawlers from the late 80s to the mid-90s, and I honestly find them largely falling short of Capcom's entries to the genre in the same time frame. But if you have 3 friends, Final Fight just won't have you. So it's pizza time with the Turtles. While the sequel is better on Super NES, when it comes to the arcade, I'll take the first one every single day. I would be shocked if anyone watching this show is unfamiliar, but just in case, you choose one of the 4 reptile adolescents and proceed to brawl your way through Krang and Shredder's hordes. There's not a ton of technique here, it's much more button mashy than something like The Punisher, for example, but it definitely hits the spot with friends. And in 1989, as a little kid with 3 buddies in the midst of Turtle Mania, there was nothing I'd rather be playing. I still remember the first time I played Street Fighter II. It wasn't on my birthday, but it was a big enough deal that I clearly remember seeing the machine at the old Olympic Lanes in Milwaukee, where my dad had his league bowling night on Fridays. He would take me with him, give me a bunch of quarters, and let me roam their massive game room. Seriously, it was as big as some standalone arcades. And no one needs me to explain Street Fighter II, obviously, but I will state that it's hard to explain how big this game was at the time. If you didn't live through it, I'm not sure you'd believe it. It was on the cover of every game magazine, constantly. A million imposters and copycats popped up in its wake, some inspiring lawsuits. And when Capcom released the first home port of the original SF2 exclusively for the Super NES, it was seen as a huge get for Nintendo. And that game is still one of Capcom's best-selling titles in their history, coming in at 7th overall, and it was number 1 for almost 2 decades. So obviously, all permutations of it were played at birthday parties in the 90s, at arcades, at home, anywhere an avid game player was, Street Fighter II or one of its incremental upgrades wasn't far behind. And even when I outgrew Chuck E. Cheese, I would have birthday parties at Aladdin's Castle, and until the 1994 release of Super Street Fighter II Turbo, one of those games was going to be part of the festivities, either at an arcade or at home, probably on the Super Nintendo. Were my friends and I any good? Not really. I mean, we thought so, but it was just passing those controllers around so much and enjoying playing with each other that gets me. Now in that same window of time with Street Fighter II, 3D games were creeping into arcades, and parties at Aladdin's Castle, or a Milwaukee area local spot, Fun World, partially owned by weatherman John Milan, were a great place to see them before home systems could handle ports. Fun World, by the way, was a pretty generic name, but the place was awesome. It had an indoor Ferris wheel, mini golf, laser tag, one of those old simulator boxes that played a movie of a roller coaster and moved in sync with it, and of course, arcade games. And of those early 3D games, the ones I recall best from my birthday parties had to be Sega's Daytona USA, and to a lesser extent, Indy 500. Not only because they were awesome, and the seemingly endless supply of tokens you'd get on your birthday meant not having to worry as much about dropping $1 on one race, but because this was a fairly rare case of my dad loving a video game. My dad certainly has been playing video games since before I was alive. He was in high school during the golden age of the arcade, but for most of my life, his love of games has been extremely focused. He plays 1 or 2 games and latches onto them for years at a time. And when I was a kid, he really enjoyed those Sega racing games. At my birthday parties in those places like Fun World, where they had the 8 cabinets linked together, he would round up enough people to have a full race of 8. Of course, now, in a world of 100-player Battle Royale games, the novelty of 8 players at once doesn't seem that impressive, but with those linked sit-down cabinets, it was a thing to behold, and a thing that remains hard to duplicate in the modern era. And to experience it with my dad, well, that just made it even better. So those are 3 games I remember from my childhood birthday parties, right before Christmas time. I hope you enjoyed this little trip down memory lane. Do you have a December birthday? Or did you have a friend that did? What games do you remember playing on those cold, snowy days? Let me know as I get ready for another nostalgia-filled trip with this year's SNDG holiday episode. Look for it before Christmas, and I'll see you then. Hey folks, it's Joe, and thank you so much for indulging me on that. If you dug this, do all the stuff. Like, subscribe if you haven't, ring the stupid bell, and comment below telling me what games you remember playing on your childhood winter breaks. This video was voted on by my Patreon backers and YouTube channel members, the cool folks whose names you see here, the ones keeping this channel ad-free. If you want to have that kind of pull, consider supporting as well. Plus, you'll get early access to new videos, and you can also support via the affiliate links to small businesses in the description, or check out the merch link where you can get shirts and stickers and stuff. If you want more nostalgia-fueled holiday content, the video on the left is last year's episode on Tony Hawk. And if you want holiday movie-fueled content, the video on the right is on Die Hard Arcade.